The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. One moment the orbital satellites showed empty space, and the next 7 enormous vessels hung above the planet like dark moons. Panic spread across every nation as communications went down for 37 minutes. When the screens came back on, a face appeared that wasn't human. The alien had blue-tinted skin, large almond-shaped eyes, and delicate features that seemed almost carved from marble. She identified herself as High Commander Zarevek of the Etherian species and chief representative of the Galactic Confederation. "People of Earth," she said in perfect English, "we have watched your development for many decades. Your species has now reached the threshold where contact is permitted. The Galactic Confederation invites humanity to join our alliance of worlds." Jack Miller watched the broadcast from the small television in his apartment. Unlike millions who stood in the streets staring at the sky or huddled with their families, Jack sat alone, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table beside him. At 32, the Navy lieutenant had seen enough of the world to be suspicious of anything that seemed too good to be true. "There's always a catch," he muttered, taking another sip. He was right. The next day, High Commander Zarevek explained. The terms Earth would not simply join the Confederation. First, they must prove their worth through a series of challenges. Each member world would send their best to compete, demonstrating the unique qualities their species could offer the Alliance. "This is standard procedure," she explained to the hastily assembled United Nations Security Council. "All member worlds have completed this process. The trials identify your species' strengths and determine your initial status within our hierarchy." The world's governments scrambled to select their representatives. They wanted their brightest scientists, strongest soldiers, and most accomplished diplomats. Advanced AI systems provided by the Confederation scanned billions of human minds, searching for optimal candidates. Jack was drinking his morning coffee when the knock came at his door. He opened it to find 4 men in black suits flanked by military police. "Lieutenant Jack Miller?" one asked. "Who wants to know?" The man held up a badge. "National Security Agency. You need to come with us immediately." "I'm on leave," Jack said, leaning against the doorframe. "Whatever this is about, take it up with my commanding officer." "This comes from higher than your commanding officer," the agent replied, handing him a tablet. "Much higher." And Jack looked at the screen and froze. His name appeared on a list titled Confederation Trials Earth Representatives. Only 12 names were on the list. "There must be some mistake," Jack said. "I'm just a tactical officer. I'm nobody special." "The alien selection system disagrees," the agent said. "Their AI specifically flagged you. Pack a bag, Lieutenant. You're going to space." 24. Hours later, Jack found himself in a sterile white room at NASA's Johnson Space Center, sitting across from General Frank Winters, the newly appointed Human Defense Coordinator. "I don't understand why I'm here," Jack said. "I've got a decent service record, but nothing remarkable. I nearly got court-martialed last year for disobeying orders." General Winters nodded. "That's exactly why you're here, Miller." The Confederation AI didn't just look at accomplishments. It looked at thought patterns, decision-making processes, even psychological profiles. Something about the way your brain works caught their attention. Jack laughed bitterly. Great. The fate of humanity might rest on the shoulders of a guy whose brain is interesting to aliens. Your record shows unconventional thinking. You saved your entire squad in that unauthorized maneuver in the South China Sea. You broke protocol. But you saved lives when following the rulebook would have gotten everyone killed. Jack looked away. "I got lucky. The aliens don't think so," Winters replied. "And neither do I." The next day, the 12 human representatives were transported to the Confederation station orbiting Earth. The vessel that carried them was unlike anything humans had built, silent, smooth, and impossibly fast. Jack felt like he was riding in an elevator rather than breaking free of Earth's gravity. The station itself was breathtaking. It stretched for miles, a gleaming ring of metal and crystal with sections that seemed to defy physics. Alien species of every description moved through the corridor, some humanoid, others completely foreign to human eyes. A tall, willowy being with 4 arms guided the human representatives to the Great Hall, where the opening ceremony would take place. Jack walked beside Dr. Nancy Hudson, a quantum physicist who had made breakthroughs in teleportation theory. She seemed as bewildered as he was. "Why did they pick you?" She whispered. "No idea," Jack admitted. "Probably a glitch in their system." The Great Hall could have held several football stadiums. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species filled the tiered seating. At the center stood a raised platform where the Confederation leadership gathered. High Commander Zaravik introduced each competing world and their champions. The Dravik, a race of powerfully built reptilian beings, drew massive cheers. The Solari, who appeared to be made of living crystal, were greeted with respectful silence. When she announced the representatives of Earth, there was a mixture of curious murmurs and dismissive laughter. "The primitive apes send their champions," a voice said loudly enough for the humans to hear. Jack clenched his jaw but kept walking. After all representatives had been introduced, a new figure appeared on the platform. She was clearly of the same species as Zaravik, but younger, with an aura of authority that silenced the hall instantly. "I present Selene, daughter of the Supreme Counselor of the Etherian Dominion," Zaravik announced with a formal bow. Selene stepped forward. Her voice carried effortlessly through the vast space. "As is tradition, I shall observe these trials and select one victor to receive my personal prize." Her eyes seemed to linger on the human delegation. "Choose your paths wisely, competitors. Glory awaits those who show true worth." The alien crowd erupted in excited chatter. Jack leaned toward Dr. Hudson. "What does that mean?" A tall, elegant alien standing nearby answered instead. "It means, human, that the most coveted reward in the Confederation is at stake. Selene is considered the most genetically perfect Etherian in 3 generations. To be chosen by her is an honor beyond measure." The alien looked Jack up and down with what seemed like amusement. "But you need not concern yourselves. No developing species has ever been worthy of an Etherian's choice. The Dravik champion will almost certainly be selected. Their neural compatibility with Etherians is well established." As the ceremony concluded, Jack caught Selene watching him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. When their eyes met, she didn't look away as he expected. Instead, her expression changed to one of curiosity or perhaps recognition. The first trial would begin tomorrow. As Jack followed the others to their quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple competition. Whatever the aliens were really looking for, he suspected humanity's future hung in the balance, and for some reason he couldn't understand. They thought he might be important to that future. Jack woke before the artificial dawn cycled through the lighting system in his quarters. Sleep had come poorly, filled with dreams of falling through endless space. He splashed cold water on his face and studied his reflection in the mirror. Same brown eyes, same 3-day stubble he'd been too busy to shave, same scar above his right eyebrow from a bar fight years ago. Nothing special, nothing that explained why he was here. A soft chime indicated it was time to meet the other human representatives. They gathered in a common area where a holographic display showed the day's schedule. "The first trial tests physical capabilities," Dr. Nancy Hudson read aloud. She was small and wiry, with short gray hair and intelligent eyes. "Strength, speed, endurance, and reflexes." Commander Steve Rogers, a broad-shouldered man from the Army Special Forces, grinned. "Finally something I can handle," Jack shook his head. "We're competing against species that evolved on different worlds with different gravity. Some of these aliens have 4 arms or exoskeletons. How is this supposed to be fair?" "It's not meant to be fair," said Dr. Ellen Wright, stepping forward. The quantum physicist had kept to herself until now. "This isn't about winning individual events. It's about showing what humans can do." "Ellen's right," Nancy added. "The briefing said each species is judged by different standards based on their biology. We just need to perform well for humans." A melodic tone sounded throughout the station, and an automated voice announced, "All competitors report to arena level for Trial 1 commencement." The arena level was massive, easily the size of 10 football fields, with sections configured for different challenges. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species were warming up. The Dravik warriors were particularly impressive, their scaled bodies rippling with muscle as they performed complex fighting forms. Their champion, a massive specimen named Gornvex, noticed the humans watching and approached. He towered over them, nearly 8 feet tall. "Small creatures," he rumbled, yellow eyes fixing on Jack. "Your bones will snap easily in the strength trials." Jack maintained eye contact despite having to crane his neck. "Good thing we're not being judged on the same scale then." Gornvex laughed, a sound like rocks in a grinder. "Scale or no scale, primitive species always fail. Your world will become a resource colony, nothing more." As the Dravik walked away, Steve muttered, "I really don't like that guy." "Forget him," Jack said. "We need to focus." The trials began with feats of strength. As expected, the humans couldn't compete with species evolved on high-gravity worlds. Even Steve, the strongest human representative, could only lift weights. That made the Dravik laugh. Jack did even worse, finishing near the bottom of the human rankings. The speed trials came next. Here, the smaller humans had some advantage, with Ellen surprising everyone by outrunning many competitors from supposedly superior species. Jack performed adequately, neither standing out nor embarrassing himself. The endurance challenge was brutal. Competitors ran on treadmills calibrated to their species' physiology, gradually increasing in difficulty until they could no longer continue. Jack found his rhythm and kept going long after most humans had dropped out. Only he and Ellen remained when the Confederation observers finally called a halt. "Impressive stamina for primitives," one alien judge noted, marking something on a floating screen. The final challenge of the day tested reflexes and coordination. Competitors navigated an obstacle course while the system fired harmless light projectiles they needed to dodge or block. Jack's naval training helped him here, and he posted the highest score among the humans. As they broke for a meal, the human representatives compared notes. "We're not doing as badly as I feared," Nancy said, studying a leaderboard that ranked species rather than individuals. "But we're nowhere near the top," Steve pointed out. "The Dravik are dominating." Ellen nodded toward the far side of the dining hall. "We have an audience." Jack turned to see Selene observing them from a private balcony. Unlike the other Etherians who kept their distance from competitors, she seemed fascinated by the humans. "Why is she so interested in us?" Jack wondered aloud. "Not us," Ellen replied quietly. "You. She hasn't taken her eyes off you since we arrived." Jack felt uncomfortable under the alien princess's gaze. "That's ridiculous. I'm the least impressive human here." "Maybe she sees something we don't," Ellen suggested. The afternoon brought the technological challenge. Competitors were tasked with solving complex engineering problems using unfamiliar tools and materials. This was where the humans expected to struggle most. Jack stared at the puzzle before him, a three-dimensional maze of energy conduits that needed reconfiguring to power a small device. The interface was alien, responding to gestures he couldn't quite master. After an hour of frustration, he had made little progress. Nearby, the Dravik warriors were equally confused, their massive hands too clumsy for the delicate work. But the crystalline Solari moved through the challenge effortlessly, their bodies seeming to communicate directly with the technology. Nancy and Ellen fared better than the other humans, their scientific backgrounds helping them decipher the alien logic. Jack, however, was failing badly. In desperation, he stopped trying to understand the interface and instead studied the energy patterns themselves. They reminded him of water currents, something he understood from years at sea. Acting on instinct, he redirected the flow not by following the expected path, but by creating a shortcut that bypassed the maze entirely. To his surprise, his device powered up. It wasn't the intended solution, but it worked. The alien judge seemed confused, checking Jack's work multiple times before reluctantly awarding him partial credit. "You cheated," Gornvex growled as they exited the challenge area. "I solved the problem," Jack replied. "Just not the way you were supposed to." "Primitive thinking," the Dravik sneered. "This is why your species will serve, not lead." As the competitors dispersed for the evening meal, Jack felt a presence behind him. He turned to find an Etherian attendant, smaller and less imposing than Selene or the High Commander. "Lieutenant Jack Miller," the attendant said formally. "Her Excellency Selene requests your presence." Jack looked around for help, but the other humans were already gone. "Just me?" "Just you." The attendant's expression revealed nothing. "Will you accept the invitation?" Jack swallowed hard. "Do I have a choice?" "There is always choice," the attendant replied. "But refusing would be ... unprecedented." Jack straightened his uniform. "Then I accept." The attendant led him through corridors he hadn't seen before, deeper into the Etherian section of the station. They passed guards who stood at attention, their eyes following Jack with what seemed like disapproval. Finally, they reached an ornate doorway that slid open silently. Inside was a space unlike anything Jack had seen on the station, not the sterile functionality of the common areas, but a garden of strange plants with glowing blue leaves and bubbling pools of liquid that wasn't quite water. Selene stood with her back to him, gazing out a viewport at Earth below. When she turned, Jack was struck by how much more imposing she was up close. Not physically threatening like the Dravik, but radiating an intelligence that made him feel transparent. "Lieutenant Miller," she said, her voice musical and perfect. "I've been watching you closely." Jack stood at attention out of habit. "May I ask why, Your Excellency?" Selene smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly sharper than human ones. "Because you solve problems differently than expected. Because when the path is blocked, you find another way." She stepped closer, studying his face. "Tomorrow's final challenge will test more than your body or mind. It will test your heart." She placed a hand near his chest without touching him. "Humans rely on this organ in ways my people have forgotten." Jack frowned, confused. "I don't understand." "You will," Selene replied. "And when you do, remember this. Not all prizes are what they seem, and not all victories come from winning." Before Jack could ask what she meant, the attendant appeared. At his side, "It is time to return, Lieutenant." As Jack was escorted out, Selene's voice followed him. "I have great expectations for you tomorrow, Jack Miller. Do not disappoint me." Walking back to human quarters, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he had just participated in a conversation where only one party knew the true subject. Whatever game the Etherians were playing, he was certain of one thing: humans were not merely being tested, they were being judged. Jack barely slept that night. Selene's words echoed in his mind. What did she mean about the heart? Why was she watching him so closely? When he finally drifted off, his dreams were filled with blue-skinned figures and yellow-eyed reptiles fighting. Over Earth. Morning came too quickly. The human representatives gathered for their final briefing before the last challenge. "Today's test is a tactical simulation," Ellen explained, reading from her datapad. "Will be placed in command of Virtual. Forces protecting civilian populations across multiple star systems." Steve cracked his knuckles. "Finally, something humans might be good at. We've been fighting wars since we crawled out of the mud." "That's not something to brag about," Nancy said sharply. Jack nodded. "Nancy's right. If the Confederation wants to see how well we kill things, that's not a future I want for Earth." The announcement chime sounded, and the 12 humans made their way to the simulation chamber. It was a massive room filled with what looked like thousands of reclining chairs, each surrounded by a glowing field. Representatives from all competing species were being directed to their stations. In Etherian, technician guided Jack to his chair. "The simulation will feel completely real," she explained. "Your mind will be connected to the scenario, but your body will remain here. Do not be alarmed by the sensation." Jack lay back in the chair. "Any advice?" The technician paused. "Most species approach this as a military exercise. They focus on victory at all costs." "And that's wrong?" She gave him a look he couldn't interpret. "I did not say that." Then she activated the field, and the world dissolved around him. Jack found himself standing on the bridge of a command ship. Displays showed 7 planetary systems, each with populated worlds under threat from an unknown force. Red dots indicated attacking vessels, while blue represented defensive forces under his command. A virtual aide appeared beside him. Commander, we are detecting multiple hostile incursions across all systems. Civilian populations are at risk? How shall we proceed? Jack studied the tactical display. The enemy forces were overwhelming, far more numerous than his defenders. Following standard military doctrine, he should concentrate his forces to protect the most valuable worlds and sacrifice the others, but something felt wrong about that. Approach. Show me population numbers for each world, he ordered. The display changed, revealing billions of lives at stake. Some worlds had only a few million inhabitants, while others had populations in the billions. Gornvex would sacrifice the smaller worlds without hesitation, Jack thought. Most military commanders would. The cold calculation of numbers demanded it. Sir? The virtual aide prompted. The enemy is advancing. We need orders. Jack made his decision. We're not going to try to defeat the enemy. We're going to evacuate. Civilians. Sir? That's not standard protocol. New protocol, Jack said firmly. Direct all combat vessels to delay actions only. Their sole purpose is to slow the enemy advance. Meanwhile, I want every transport, cargo ship, and civilian vessel redirected for evacuation. Priority to the smallest populations first. They can be saved completely. But sir, that means sacrificing our military advantage. We could lose all our defensive capabilities. Ships can be rebuilt, Jack replied. Lives can't be replaced. Execute the order. The simulation unfolded over what felt like days. Jack coordinated massive evacuation efforts, moving billions of civilians to safety while his military forces fought delaying actions. He lost nearly every battle but one time for evacuations. When the simulation finally ended, Jack found himself back in the real world, sweating and exhausted. The technician helped him sit up. How did I do? He asked. She looked at him with what might have been respect. Your results are unusual. The scoring ceremony took place in the Great Hall. All competitors stood at attention as the Confederation judges announced the results. The Dravik champion Gornvex scored highest in the physical trials. The crystalline Solari dominated the technological challenges. Then came the tactical simulation results. In the tactical challenge, announced High Commander Zarevek, the highest score in Confederation history has been achieved. A murmur of excitement ran through the crowd. All eyes turned to Gornvex, who stood proudly, clearly expecting to be named. The competitor who achieved this unprecedented result, Zarevek continued, approached the challenge in a way no previous participant has attempted. Rather than seeking military victory, this individual prioritized civilian evacuation, resulting in a 97% survival rate. The hall fell silent. The Dravik warriors looked confused. Lieutenant Jack Miller of Earth, Zarevek announced, you have redefined the parameters of this challenge. Your solution revealed a flaw in our standard military doctrine that has cost countless lives over centuries. Jack stood frozen in shock as the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and outraged protests. The other human representatives looked as surprised as he felt. I don't understand, he whispered to Ellen. I lost every battle. You saved the people, she replied. That was the real test. Gornvex stormed forward. This is an outrage. The human lost every military engagement. His forces were destroyed. By what measure is this a victory? High Commander Zarevek's voice cut through the noise. By the measure that matters most, Gornvex, life preserved rather than conquered. The closing ceremony began immediately after. The Confederation Council took their places on the central platform, with Selene standing prominently among them. Jack noticed she was watching him again, with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Representatives of all worlds, Zarevek announced, you have shown your species' qualities through these trials. The Confederation welcomes Earth as a probationary member world. A polite applause followed, but Jack could sense the tension in the room. Earth's status was clearly lower than many had hoped for. Now, Zarevek continued, as is tradition, those who distinguish themselves in the trials will receive recognition and rewards. She turned to Selene. My daughter will now announce her personal selection. The hall fell silent. This was The moment every competitor had secretly hoped for, to be chosen by the most desirable being in the Confederation. Say Lane stepped forward, her eyes scanning the gathered representatives. The Dravik champion Gornvex stood tall, clearly expecting to be chosen despite Jack's unexpected victory in the final challenge. I have observed all competitors throughout these trials, Selene said, her voice carrying effortlessly. I have seen strength, intelligence, and skill. But I have also looked for something deeper, a quality that the Confederation needs more than any other. She paused, building tension. I choose as my prize... Her eyes found Jack in the crowd, Lieutenant Jack Miller of Earth. The hall erupted in chaos. The Dravik delegation roared in outrage. Other species buzzed with confusion and surprise. The human representatives looked at Jack with expressions ranging from shock to suspicion. Jack stood paralyzed, unable to process what had just happened. Ellen nudged him forward. You need to go up there, she whispered. As Jack walked toward the platform on shaking legs, he heard Gornvex shouting behind him. A primitive human? This is an insult to the Confederation. The Dravik Empire rejects this decision. Jack reached the platform where Selene waited, her expression unreadable. The protests continued throughout the hall, but she seemed unbothered by the chaos her choice had created. Why me? Jack managed to ask quietly. Selene's lips curved in a slight smile. You will understand soon enough, Lieutenant Miller. For now, know only that you have shown me something I have searched for across 1,000 worlds. As guards moved to contain the increasingly angry Dravik delegation, Jack realized that whatever game the Confederation was playing, the rules had just changed, and somehow he had become the most important piece on the board. Guards quickly surrounded Jack as angry shouts filled the great hall. The Dravik delegation was particularly furious, with Gornvex demanding the decision be overturned. Other species joined the protest, arguing that choosing a human was an insult to the Confederation's traditions. Come, Selene said calmly to Jack, seemingly unbothered by the chaos. We must leave before this becomes dangerous. Jack glanced back at the other human representatives, who looked as confused as he felt. Ellen gave him an encouraging nod while Steve mouthed what looked like good luck. Selene led Jack through a private exit, flanked by Etherian guards. They moved swiftly through corridors Jack had never seen before, deeper into the Etherian section of the station. Behind them, the sounds of the uproar gradually faded. What happens now? Jack asked as they entered what appeared to be a luxurious living area. What does it mean to be your prize? Selene gestured for him to sit. That depends on the species and their customs. Some view it as taking a servant. Others see it as claiming a champion or advisor. Her eyes studied him carefully. What do humans think it means? Jack chose his words carefully. On Earth, people can't be prizes. It sounds like ownership. Interesting, Selene said. Yet humans kept slaves for much of your history. We learned better, Jack replied firmly. Whatever your plans are, I won't be owned? To his surprise, Selene smiled. Good, that is precisely the response I hoped for. She moved to a viewing window that showed Earth spinning below. I have not claimed you as property, Lieutenant Miller. I have selected you as a representative of humanity's unique perspective. Before Jack could ask what she meant, a communication panel chimed. Selene touched it, and High Commander Zarevek's face appeared. Daughter, the Confederation Council demands an emergency session. The Dravik ambassador threatens to withdraw from the alliance over your choice. You must explain yourself. I will attend, Selene said calmly. Prepare quarters for Lieutenant Miller adjacent to mine. He is under my protection. When the communication ended, she turned to Jack. Rest. I must deal with politics now. I should come with you, Jack said. This is about me, after all. Selene considered him for a moment. Very well. It may be educational for you to see the Confederation Council at work, but speak only when addressed directly. The council chamber was smaller than the Great Hall, but no less impressive. 50 representatives from the most powerful Confederation species sat in tiered seating around a central floor. Selene and Jack entered to immediate silence. all eyes following them. The Dravik ambassador, a massive warrior even larger than Gornvex, stood as they approached the center. "This is unprecedented," he growled, pointing a clawed finger at Jack. "For millennia, the prize has gone to species who have proven their evolutionary superiority. Humans are barely out of their Stone Age." An elegant crystalline Solari representative spoke next, her voice like chiming bells. "While I would not express it so crudely, the Dravik raises a valid concern. Humans have no achievements worthy of such honor. They still burn fossil fuels and wage wars over resources." One by one, representatives voiced their objections. Jack stood silently beside Selene, increasingly uncomfortable as his species was described as primitive, violent, and unworthy. Finally, Selene raised her hand and the chamber fell silent. "The tradition of claiming a prize is not about rewarding technological achievement," she said. "It is about recognizing qualities the Confederation needs. I have studied thousands of species across my lifetime. In Lieutenant Miller, I observed something increasingly rare in our advanced civilizations," the Dravik ambassador sneered. "What? Could a human possibly offer that evolved species cannot?" "Empathy," Selene replied simply. "The capacity to value life above victory, compassion above efficiency, meaning above power." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack looked at Selene. "In surprise?" "The tactical simulation proved it," she continued. "When faced with impossible odds, advanced species choose to preserve military assets and sacrifice civilians. Lieutenant Miller chose to save lives even at the cost of tactical defeat." "That is weakness," the Dravik ambassador roared. "Is it?" Selene challenged. "Then why does the Confederation exist at all? If strength is our only value, why not let the strongest species rule and the rest perish? We formed this alliance precisely because we recognize that cooperation serves all better than domination." The chamber grew quiet as Selene's words sank in. "I chose Lieutenant Miller not despite his humanity, but because of it. His species still remembers what many of us have forgotten, that advancement without compassion is simply sophisticated barbarism." The council session continued for hours, with various representatives debating the merits of Selene's choice. Throughout it all, Jack remained silent, processing her words. She hadn't chosen him for any personal quality, but as a representative of humanity's perspective. When they finally returned to the Etherian quarters, Jack was exhausted. "Will they accept your decision?" "They have no choice," Selene replied. "The right to choose is absolute by our oldest laws." But the Dravik will not forget this perceived insult. A communication alert sounded. Selene activated the screen to reveal a human-faced General Winters, looking extremely concerned. "Lieutenant Miller," he said with obvious relief. "Thank God. You're alive. Earth governments are in an uproar. The media is reporting you've been taken as some kind of pet or slave by alien royalty." Jack winced. "It's not like that, sir." "I need to speak with your Confederation leaders immediately," Winters continued. "Earth demands your return. We're threatening to reject Confederation membership unless you're released." Selene stepped into view. "General Winters, I am Selene, of the Etherian Dominion. Your concern is understandable but misplaced. Lieutenant Miller is not a captive, but an honored guest and advisor. Then he's free to return to Earth?" Winters challenged. Before Selene could answer, alarms blared throughout. The station, a security officer burst into the room. "Your Excellency, Dravik warships have broken formation and are moving toward Earth's orbital defenses." Selene's expression hardened. It seems Gornvex's pride has overwhelmed his judgment. She turned to the screen. "General, I must cut this short. Please alert. Your defenses, the Dravik may attempt an unauthorized show of force." The screen went dark as Selene hurried toward the command center with Jack close behind. "What's happening?" he asked. "The Dravik feel humiliated," she explained as they rushed through corridors filled with rushing Etherian personnel. "They likely intend to demonstrate their power by intimidating Earth's defenses. Will the Confederation stop them?" Selene's expression was grim. "The Council is divided. Some may secretly welcome this opportunity to put humans in their place. They reached the command center where High Commander Zarevek was already issuing orders. Massive displays showed Dravik warships approaching Earth's orbital satellites. "Mother," Selene said urgently. "We must intervene," Zarevek looked troubled. "Half the council argues this is a Dravik matter of honor, not a Confederation concern." Jack stepped forward, forgetting protocol. "Those are my people down there. They have no defense against Dravik technology." "I am aware, Lieutenant," Zarevek replied coolly, "but I cannot act without council approval." Jack looked from Zarevek too. Selene, realization dawning. "This is why you chose me, isn't it? You knew something like this would happen." Selene met his gaze steadily. "I chose you because I saw in you what the Confederation has lost. But yes, I suspected the Dravik would react poorly." On the display, the Dravik ships moved ever closer. To Earth, Jack felt helpless, watching a potential attack on his homeworld that he could do nothing to stop. "There must be something we can do," he said desperately. Lane placed a hand on his shoulder. "There is, Jack, but first, you need to understand what's truly at stake here. This isn't just about Earth or the Dravik's wounded pride. It's about the future of the entire Confederation." As alarms continued to sound around them, Jack realized that whatever Selene had seen in him, whatever quality she valued in humanity, was about to be tested in ways he couldn't imagine. Jack stared at the display showing Dravik warships approaching Earth. In the Etherian command center, High Commander Zarevek was arguing with Confederation representatives via holographic projections. "We need more time for the Council to reach consensus," a Solari representative insisted. "Earth does not have time," Zarevek replied sharply. "The Dravik will be in weapons range in minutes." Jack turned to Selene. "You said I could help." "How?" Selene nodded. "The Dravik respect strength and direct confrontation. They view our diplomatic methods as weakness. Perhaps a human approach would be effective." "Let me speak to them," Jack said. "Their pride is wounded because you chose me. Let me face Gornvex directly." Zarevik looked skeptical. "The Dravik will not listen to a human." "They might," Selene countered. "Especially if he challenges them according to their own customs." "What do you mean?" Jack asked. "The Dravik have an ancient tradition," Selene explained. "A personal challenge from one warrior to another can supersede political conflicts. If you challenge Gornvex to single combat, he would be bound by tradition to accept or lose honor." Jack's eyes widened. "You want me to fight that thing? He'd tear me apart?" "Not physical combat," Selene said quickly. "A challenge of minds. The Dravik value tactical thinking as much as physical prowess." Jack considered this. A chess match with the fate of Earth at stake. "Something like that," Selene agreed. Zarevik frowned. "The Council will never approve such an unorthodox approach." "We don't need their approval," Selene said firmly. "This is between Jack and Gornvex." Jack made his decision. "Let's do it." "Open a channel to the Dravik ships." Minutes later, Gornvex's massive face filled the main screen. He looked surprised. "To see Jack, the human pet, speaks, this is unexpected." Jack kept his voice steady. "I challenge you, Gornvex, under the ancient Dravik tradition of Carnval. One warrior to another, a test of minds, not bodies." Gornvex's yellow eyes narrowed. "You know our traditions, human?" "I know enough," Jack replied. "Are you brave enough to accept, or will you hide behind your warships?" The Dravik commander snarled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You dare question my courage? Name your challenge." Jack had been thinking quickly. "A simulation. Similar to the tactical challenge, but with a difference. We will each have identical forces. The goal is not destruction, but persuasion to convince the opponent's forces to join yours voluntarily." Gornvex laughed. "You wish to talk your way to victory? Typical weak human approach?" "If it's so weak," Jack pressed, "you should easily defeat me." The Dravik was silent for a moment, calculating. "And the stakes?" "If I win, the Dravik withdraw their ships and acknowledge Earth's membership in the Confederation. If you win, ... Jack took a deep breath. "Earth withdraws its application, and I return to my planet in disgrace." Selene stepped forward. And my choice is rescinded. Jack glanced at her in surprise. Gornvex considered the offer. Agreed. Prepare the simulation. We begin in 1 hour. When the screen went dark, Zarovec turned to them. This is highly irregular. The Council will thank us when this crisis is resolved, Selene interrupted. She turned to Jack. You have an hour to prepare. What do you need? I need to talk to the other human representatives, Jack said. Especially Ellen and Nancy. 50. Minutes later, Jack entered the simulation chamber where Gornvex waited. The massive Dravik warrior looked confident, even amused. Your strategy is doomed, human, he rumbled. My forces will never follow you. Jack said nothing as they took their positions in the simulation chairs. As the system activated, he recalled Ellen's advice. Dravik society values strength, but their definition is narrow. Show them a different kind of strength. The simulation began. Jack found himself in command of a virtual military force identical to Gornvex's. The battlefield was a contested planet with both military and civilian populations from various species. Gornvex immediately launched aggressive attacks, targeting Jack's command centers. Jack, following the plan he'd developed with the other humans, did something unexpected. He opened communication channels to the Dravik civilian population in the simulation. People of the Dravik Empire, he broadcast. I am Lieutenant Jack Miller of Earth. I don't wish to destroy your forces or conquer your territories. I come with a proposal. Jack outlined a plan for cooperation that would benefit both sides, offering protection for Dravik civilians and respect for their culture while establishing clear boundaries. He emphasized shared goals rather than domination. Gornvex, seeing what Jack was doing, scrambled to block the transmissions and launched heavier attacks. But Jack had anticipated this. He allowed some losses while continuing his diplomatic approach, even with Dravik military units. Your commander sees only one path to victory: destruction, Jack told the Dravik forces. I offer another way, one, where your people thrive without needless sacrifice. To Gornvex's shock, some of his units began to hesitate. The simulation, designed to model realistic psychological responses, showed growing discontent among his forces. This is trickery. Gornvex roared, redoubling his attacks. Jack stayed calm, continuing his approach while defending strategically. He shared information about successful cooperative ventures between different species, highlighting benefits that conquest alone could never provide. Slowly, incredibly, units began to defect to Jack's side. Not because he conquered them, but because he offered them something the Dravik leadership never had: a future based on mutual respect rather than fear. When the simulation ended 3 hours later, Jack had achieved what the Confederation had thought impossible. He had convinced over 60% of Gornvex's forces to join him voluntarily. The Dravik commander ripped himself from the simulation chair, roaring in fury. This proves nothing. In reality, my warriors would never betray me. Selene stepped forward. The simulation draws on actual psychological profiles of your species, Gornvex. It shows what could happen if your people were given a genuine choice. The Confederation Council representatives who had been observing looked stunned. The Solari delegate spoke first. The humans' approach was ... unexpected and effective. The challenge was accepted and completed according to Dravik tradition, Zarovec stated formally. The terms must be honored. Gornvex glared at Jack with hatred, but even he would not violate the sacred traditions of his people. Withdraw. All forces, he growled into his communicator. The human has won this round. As the Dravik ships moved away from Earth, the tension in the command center eased. Jack felt exhausted but relieved. You did well, Selene said quietly. Better than I expected. Was this your plan all along? Jack asked. To force a confrontation? Not exactly, she admitted. But I knew choosing you would challenge the Confederation's assumptions. For too long, we have equated technological advancement with civilization. We forgot that true advancement includes moral and ethical growth. In the days that followed, Jack became the center of diplomatic negotiations between Earth and the Confederation. The Dravik reluctantly accepted Earth's membership, Though tensions remained high, when Jack finally met with the other human representatives, Ellen hugged him fiercely. "You did it," she said. "You showed them something they'd never seen before." "Not me," Jack replied. "Humanity. Selene didn't choose me because I'm special. She chose me because I'm human." 1 week later, Jack stood with Selene in the observation deck, watching Earth rotate below. The Confederation Council had approved a new initiative, a cultural exchange program where humans would teach Confederation species about their perspective while learning advanced technology. "So that's why you chose me," Jack said. "Not as a prize, but as a teacher," Selene smiled. "Yes, the Confederation has grown stagnant, Jack. We have incredible technology but have lost sight of why we build it. Humans still remember what many of us have forgotten, that advancement without compassion is meaningless. And the Dravik? They will adapt or they will be left behind," she said simply. "The future belongs to those who can grow beyond their limitations." Jack looked at his homeworld, blue and beautiful against the darkness of space. "Will they let me go home?" "You can return whenever you wish," Selene said. "But I hope you'll consider staying at least for a while. There is much we can learn from each other." She hesitated, then added, "When I said I chose you as my prize, that was not entirely accurate. In truth, you are a gift not to me, but from humanity to the Confederation. A reminder of what we once were and could be again," Jack smiled. "That's a lot of responsibility for one lieutenant." "You won't be alone," Selene promised. "This is just the beginning." As they stood together watching Earth, Jack realized that humanity's first steps into the galactic community had already changed the course of interstellar history. Not through superior weapons or technology, but through the simple, powerful idea that compassion was not weakness but the greatest strength of all.